Yeah, welcome to another episode of The Round Circle with your host, the fifth general, Zacchaeus and Cinema Escapes. What up, Mrs.? What up, Zacchaeus?
Hey, what's good, man? Good to be here.
All right.
Yeah.
Cinema is taking a hiatus, but he'll be with us soon. So we're keeping we're still looking out for our brother. Our brother's good. He's fine. Just so everybody knows, there's nothing wrong with him. Just a time of bereavement. Okay. So shout outs to my brother, our brother, and he'll be
Cinema.
He'll be back with the show soon enough, but he's not on this episode. So Zacchaeus, I'm gonna let you start off this show, giving a tribute to and just remembering Congressman John Lewis.
Yeah. Listen, growing up, I used to watch a lot of Eyes on the Prize back in the early 90s. Man, I'm telling my age already. But actually back in the late 80s, early 90s, I used to watch it because I was into history. I'm into history.
Right.
Especially the civil rights era.
Right.
So I knew about John Lewis from way back in the 90s, early 90s, and I seen him as a young man in his prime, walking across what's called something called Bloody Sunday, walking across the Emmons Peters Bridge. I seen him on the buses. Those who don't know, in the early 1963, 1964, maybe 1962, Freedom Ride buses, where the Freedom Ride buses was a bunch of young people during the civil rights era, Jim Crow civil rights era. They rode through. They were basically fighting for human rights, but they sat on that bus just to and bunch of young people, like college students, high school, young people, in their 18, 19, and John Lewis was a part of that. A big. You see his face in a lot of documentaries as a young man, sitting on those buses, and then walking into those Woolworth, where they could sit in the demonstrations where they sat in the Woolworth and asking to be served, and then being bashed by the white supremacy people that walk into the delis and into the Woolworth stores and just taking that abuse and going through all that. He was actually beaten. I seen him beaten they had a live footage on Eyes on the Prize where he was basically beaten up he was pulled off a bus with a few other Jewish civil rights young activists, and just beaten, just riding through the South on the Freedom Ride buses, and I just looked at him and I applaud him. So when as time went on, and I didn't hear, for a while I didn't hear anything about John, but I know he was a congressman. He became a congressman, and he was still, from that point on, was still his voice was loud as far as being still fighting for civil rights. We're still fighting for civil rights today. So I always applauded John Lewis for his attributes and his contribution to the civil rights, even as a young man. Going through that, because it's one thing to look at it, it's another thing to read about John Lewis and what he went through, but it's another thing to live through that, and we're not old enough to experience that. Only he experienced that. What people around his age experienced that, But it's just a time when young people was with. And older people, everyone as far as black people, fighting for human rights just to get a vote, just to sit, just to go buy your shoes, just to go sit on a bus, just to go eat getting served at in the same place where the white counterparts sitting. Just for that. It was a fight for that. And my gosh, it's a serious fight for that. But I mean, it's like, if those who are listening to me out there, if you want to look at some of the footages on Eyes on the Prize, it's on YouTube. You can get that on YouTube. Yes, you can. John Lewis, you'll see John Lewis' face all up in there. And I applaud. That's why on this passing, I was a little down. I was like, wow, here's another leader that now he's gone. He's also considered a legend, but he's gone. And not only that, too, this is my belief, man. I really think they walked through the Emmons Peters Bridge. Emmons Peters Bridge, that name, I think that was named after Emmons Peters. That bridge was named after supremacy leader around that time, earlier, before the Emmons Peters Bridge. I believe that to honor him fully is to rename that bridge John Lewis, the John Lewis Bridge. That's my opinion, because if you see him and you see a lot of young activists walking just so we can have our rights today, walking through that bridge and being beaten and being mauled to death by dogs and beaten and just beaten severely. Some of the old folks, they see them beaten with blood coming down their face. John Lewis was bloody a few times already. I've seen his face as a young man. Just to go through that, it took a lot. So that's why today, when they buried the congressman today, he was honored, a whole lot of honor. They stood and applauded him because of what he stood for. So, but if you want to see some footage of Eyes on the Prize footage, just go back and just go on YouTube, type in Eyes on the Prize, and you'll see John Lewis' face amongst the crowd as a young man. But today, me and Fifth, we give our condolences to him and to give our condolences to his family and to his close friends and his family. He's gonna be missed. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, rest in peace, John Lewis, and we'll go on without. We'll keep it moving. So there's a lot that we wanted to touch on within this past week or so. We didn't have a show last week for people, but we just want to catch up on some things. So
yeah,
what I really wanted to talk about so badly was just that, when you're an outspoken black man and you speak to an issue that, might ruffle a few feathers. But then, you get attacked and, you get labeled anti-Semitic. I'm talking about Nick Cannon. And this is a label, once it's attached to you, you're pretty much marked for life, sadly.
Wow, yeah.
Well, when you're black, because, Mel Gibson was labeled this, but he was able to still have a career.
Yeah.
But so Nick Cannon's statement, I'm just quoting him. How can black people be anti-Semitic when the Semitic people are black people?
Hello.
So the ADL, Anti-Defamation, and the Jewish community came at Nick pretty hard. They also took another comment that he had out of context. He wasn't talking about the Jewish community when he talked about those who were in the Caucasus Mountains and the conditions that they lived in because they didn't have the melanin that melanated people have. He was talking about the people of the Caucasus Mountains, and he talked about things that have happened in through history and in nature, and he had this interview with Professor Griff on his podcast, and he talked about things that he had researched and read. Now I don't know if I would go along with everything he said in that statement. To me, it's irrelevant. I mean, in terms of what he said about how people from the inhabitants of the wanderers of those in the Caucasus Mountains and the conditions that they lived in, and when they came down and to travel the world and do acts of pillaging and corruption and taking over things, that he was saying that was because of their conditions, and because they didn't have the sun, there was elements and properties that they didn't benefit from because of survival. Yeah. So, to me, that's irrelevant in terms of that, because regardless of what condition you live, regardless of what weather condition you lived in, racism is racism, and it is what it is with that. So people who heard that part, he apologized for those who he offended, but the Jewish community thought that comment was about Jewish people. It actually wasn't, and I'll say it for them. I don't care. He wasn't talking about them, and he made it clear on this other on when he had the rabbi on. He made it clear he wasn't talking about them. He also made it clear that what he was saying was, I never said that you guys weren't Jews. I was just saying that I am too. You know what I'm saying? And the rabbi couldn't debunk what he said. You know why? You know why he couldn't debunk about the Semitic people being people of dark complexion? Is because you can't debunk that. You can't debunk truth. You could debunk lies, and you could clarify, and you can correct myths and stuff like that. You could explore myths and try to debunk that, but you can't debunk a fact. That is a fact. Zacchaeus, you saw the interview with Griff, and I take it you also saw the interview with the rabbi. What's your out before we run it all the way through? First, how do you feel about the interview with Griff? Do you feel that that Nick Cannon may have spoken in that manner because he had Griff on his show and he wanted to show himself approved?
No, I really think that Nick really felt that way deep down inside. But you see, the thing is that Nick was coming with facts, and Professor Griff was just he was a little impressed at how much knowledge Nick had.
Right.
I think that's what it was, and because Professor Griff is a man that for years had knowledge himself.
Yeah. Well, he was the minister of information in Public Enemy.
Yes.
That was his job.
Exactly.
Before he got kicked out by the very rabbi that Nick spoke to. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, see? So anytime you're standing for truth and speak for truth, you always will get booted out, or you always will get propaganda around you and against you. You ever have propaganda coming that's going to put your name out there and put it as negative. So when Nick was being interviewed by Griff, when Griff was answering some question, but also dropping knowledge and dropping information that a lot of young people didn't know, which I think was a very important footage to look on YouTube. For those who haven't seen it yet, check out the interview with Nick and Professor Griff. It's powerful. I thought it was a powerful piece because Griff was explaining his book. Those who get his book, and he's also go get his book out there because he's making it very easy to get his book, especially if you want to gain more knowledge of self and gain more knowledge of Black humor and where we're going as far as where we need to go. That's a book you should pick up because Professor Griff is a very informative individual, extremely. So when you speak to Professor Griff, you'll gain a lot. And Nick did get in. I seen that Nick was absorbing what he say and just taking in the information what he says and just meditating on it and also reflecting on it as far as feeding off of it. Because there's a lot of things that Professor Griff said. If I can remember certain things, Professor Griff said that's really hit home as far as information about youth, black youth, and also and there's a lot of misconception. You mentioned about the Jews too, which is a lot of misunderstanding because at the time when Griff was saying that he spoke something which I didn't know is a time when he was how we got because I heard it when he got kicked out of Public Enemy. I heard that back in the days because those who grew up in hip hop, oh yeah, we knew that. We heard about that, but I didn't know how. Is when Professor Griff explained how he got kicked out. I was like, oh, he was amongst the Jewish community, and he said something that they took offense to.
He asked the
question. And he tried to clean it up, but when he was on the non-interview, they sabotaged it and they put it into some paper, and next thing you know, he's being kicked out for some probably he's being kicked out of Public Enemy, and from that point on, I was like, oh wow, Professor, like where's Professor Griff?
Right.
Yeah, that's 1W. Where's Professor Griff? So it's like, and then he formed his own, after Public Enemy, you didn't hear too much about him. And then he formed his own, those who were in hip hop, he formed his own music, he formed his own way of the movement, his own kind of movement. But he was a force to be reckoned with, man, during that time of 89, 88, 87, the Public Enemy era when Public Enemy was pretty big at that time. And Professor Griff was something to watch. It just was, I didn't know, those are the things I didn't know. So it was something for me to watch too. But I thought it was a very, very informative interview between him and Nick Cannon, because Nick Cannon fed off of him, and Nick Cannon was able to understand where Professor Griff was coming from, but also was able to to meditate on it, so he could and whoever was listening was able to understand that where Professor Griff was coming from. See, a lot of until you get it from his mouth, it's all the media always jumps to conclusion and then blow it up, and then next thing you know, it's like disarray. Now the interview with the rabbi, man, it was an interview that I looked at and I tried to understand what he was saying, but I disagree with certain things that the rabbi said. He said that Louis Farrakhan said certain things that was totally against the Jews. I've listened to a lot of Louis Farrakhan speeches, and he may say certain things, but it was not to that severity that this rabbi was talking about. Now, on the defense, Nick Cannon, and I'm glad Nick Cannon stood on Minister Louis Farrakhan's side and said, listen, you may say some things about Minister Louis Farrakhan, but on that day, on October of 1995, when he brought the black male together on that day, on
Million Man March.
Million Man March. I remember that particular day on October 1995. The Million Man March was a day of solidarity and a day to reflect on helping us build our community up and helping us embrace each other as black people and helping us build our especially for our families too, helping to be good examples to our families as black men. That I thought that was an effective march. I mean, yeah, you could say that. Well, I don't. A lot of people say that didn't help what's going on in Chicago. That didn't help what's going on. But I believe that march was important because I remember that particular day. I didn't go to school. I was supposed to go to school. I didn't go to school that day. I just took my time and I just took a day off of solidarity because they had two buses at the time leaving in New York City, about few buses, and a few buses left. And and I remember, it's like, how can this man just got all these people together in D.C. at that time, and it was a day. It was a day of solidarity. For even if you didn't go to the Million Man March, it was a day to you to reflect and don't work and honor that day, But so, but the rabbi said, but this rabbi was saying certain things, and I really took it. Certain things, yes, I agree, but certain things I'm like, okay, nah, it's just, you can't let certain things he said, as far as like with Minister Louis Farrakhan, I didn't agree with it at all, man. So, but that's my take on it, on these interviews, and I especially particularly enjoyed the one with Professor Griffin, Nick Cannon, So yeah.
So let's go a little further. So Nick got fired from. I mean, this is old news for everybody now, but Nick's relationship with Viacom, CBS Viacom, has come to a close. Nick
can't believe it.
Nick was like, you know what, whatever. I don't need y'all money. It is what it is. Fox is still under contract with him for Masked Singer and any other projects he had coming forward. His talk show, his late night talk show, that has been delayed. The point I want to get to is this. If you offend somebody, I get it, then you should apologize for it. But if you speak some truth that can't be debunked, then I don't understand where you go from there. You shouldn't be shut down if you speak truth that can't be debunked. I mean, theories, whatever, we call them theories, but the only reason why we call them theories is because of the history that people have been removed from. White supremacy has been so in control of telling the story, reporting the story. And because of that, black people, when they hear what Nick Cannon said about black people being Semitic, that there are black Semitic people, I mean, that is true. The Bible speaks about that. So I think, if anything, I would like to see that rabbi get in a debate. I would like Nick Cannon to host on Cannon's class, host a debate where we have scholars, Jewish and black, and others who are non-Jewish or non-black, who know this history, who have studied this history as far as the regions, get into a debate. And then let's really break this down. It's not about proving, it's not about calling people perpetrators, but whatever your birthright is and what you are when you were born, you should be able to have that. You shouldn't be able to be afraid to speak on that. I don't believe that. I don't.
It's the premise. You don't want to hear truth like that, man. I mean, it's like, remember they have a lot of, well, not a lot. They had a show, a form of black men. I forgot the name of the show. Black Men Revealed. Men Revealed.
Yeah.
Shows like that, as you can see, they don't last too long, because every time you speak and you come out with the truth, it's like automatically you're a threat. And automatically certain things get pulled from you because you come out with certain truths. So, and they don't like to hear. They like you to be one of those brothers, that come out there and speak about a little gossip here and there, and pump your fists in the air and talk about a little gossip. Like I ain't calling no names, but
well, hold on. Let's get a little clear on that.
Yeah.
They're okay with gossip that exploits and dehumanizes and demonizes black people. They're not okay with black people talking gossip of non-black people. This is why on Entertainment Tonight and Extra and Access Hollywood and those shows have gossip. Okay?
Yeah.
They don't want a whole bunch of black people speaking on that. Now, Wendy Williams' show has gossip, but there's a point to be made on Wendy Williams' show. If she's going to talk about the gossip of non-black people, if anybody watches her show, most of the gossip is focused on black celebrities.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so that's where the quota comes in. The quota is, we'll let you talk about the others too, but you better be talking about your own people. If you're black,
Hello.
now if you're non-black, specifically if you're white, you can get on a forum, a program such as Fox News, such as anything else. All of them don't matter. CNN, MSNBC doesn't matter, and you can say whatever you can say whatever you want about black people, and you will have a show that can run for 10 plus years, and then you don't get removed in the same fashion if you would have talked about somebody of the LGBT plus community or of the Jewish community.
Right.
Now, that's not fair. Now, what I'm saying is nobody should be talked about. I'm not saying let's even it out and let's now talk about them the same way they talk about us. What I'm saying is you shouldn't be saying lies and disparaging anybody. That's not right.
Right.
So keep that same energy when it comes to talking about us. But really, the only thing black people could do is boycott, because we don't own these Fortune 500 companies that are the media, that are big time corporations. We don't own that. So we don't have the power to fight anybody. And if somebody wants to debate me and say, well, so-and-so got fired, yeah, but then he got rehired on another program. Well, so-and-so got removed, yeah, but that wasn't by black people.
Right.
We didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? We didn't make that call. We wasn't able to. And secondly, if Fortune 500 companies, say it was reverse and we own these companies, non-black people wouldn't even want to work for us to begin with. Okay? Yeah. So I see a lot of people will say, well, how come they don't see white people working at black-owned businesses? It's because black people don't want to hire them? No, I doubt that. It's because white people, for the most part, are uncomfortable taking orders from a black boss.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Zacchaeus.
Yeah, which is true. Because they feel some supremacy. Well, all supremacy. We're not talking about every white person. We're talking about some. So we're talking about supremacy.
Well, we're talking about white supremacy. Ain't no other supremacy in America. But go ahead.
Yeah, white supremacy. That's right. So we're reflecting on, they feel that they know way more than what you know. They're more knowledgeable than what you know. They feel that you don't know what you're talking about. They know better. They know best. So to take orders from you is like, they feel that they're belittling themselves. Okay? Now we can talk about how much black-owned businesses that we got to support each other. Yes, we do, because that's all we have is each other. Now you want to get mad at Nick, and you want to get mad at some folks when we speak up against certain things. Then all we have is our voice. That's it. Y'all could, it's okay for you to speak about, okay, let's push businesses. But the reason why we do push our businesses, and the reason why we do, because all we have is each other. The world is against us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all we have is each other to support each other and to be advocates for each other. And that's it. That's all we got. So when you want to talk about building propaganda, it's okay. It's one thing to have a show. We have our shows. Like we have our own talk shows. But every time, but once we step up with the truth, it's like it's only a few episodes, and then the episodes end at a certain time. Because I'm waiting to see this Nick Cannon show how long it's gonna last. But if he keeps it underground, it could last a long time.
Well,
It could last a long time.
let me cut in real quick.
So,
Cannon's Class is a podcast owned and controlled and operated by him. Wildin' Out, on the other hand, is a show that is on MTV2. So that's the difference there. What he said was on his podcast. His podcast is not being shut down. He didn't get fired for doing his podcast. He got fired from MTV because of something because of something he said on his podcast. So Nick Cannon is going to continue, but I want to say that Nick Cannon actually did more than what other people do. He was confronted by a community that was offended, and he reached out to that community and had a representative from that community talk with him on his show. That is very different from when somebody who's non-black offends us. They don't want to talk to us when we tell them what they said about us was offended. Black people have been telling countless networks that what they do to us and how they show us and portray us is offensive, and nothing has been done.
Let me tell you something. And Nick was, I was like taken back when Nick did that. When Nick invited the rabbi to come speak with him, and I said that's very big, because usually it's like when you do that what I looked at that and I'm like, man, he actually invited the rabbi to see the inside of what's the rabbi, how the rabbi reflects on the black community and his response to the anti-Semitic. And I looked at that and I said, man, I could see this podcast, and I'm gonna continue to watch the podcast because Nick is speaking to. One thing with this generation is like we have access to own our own now, and we can speak the truth on our own. You can't, like you said, you're right, Fifth. We can't get fired from our own. You know what I'm saying? That's his own. So yeah, I knew about I got fired from Wildin' Out because yeah, I know that's MTV thing. I understand, but the thing is that what's annoying is that he didn't say that on Wildin' Out. He said it on his own podcast, and you're gonna fire him for that? Come on.
Well, that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that can happen.
Yeah, so
well, okay.
Yeah.
Let me so let's steer it in this way because we don't want to go off course here. So my question to you is, remember when so Diddy said, hey, come work for us, you know what I'm saying? We black owned, you know what I'm saying? We'll look out for you. And what do you think Nick should do? You think Nick should, work with Diddy and see how that goes? Maybe Diddy could do a deal with him, to where Cannon's Class is on, Revolt TV, just like the deal that Nori and DJ EFN made with Drink Champs, being featured on Revolt TV as well. You think that's something that could probably work out?
You know what? Long as he got that freedom to do that. Right. If he wants to take that deal, it's all about the freedom.
Right.
To tell it to speak truth. Right. It's all about the freedom to speak truth because sometimes you get with these network, and sometimes they mimic what you say, or what they do is they don't play what you say, or what they do is they control what you say. Mm-hmm. So if he can work with Diddy, but as long as he has that verbal freedom to speak, to spew out truth and to speak truth, then and be flexible with it and be like, listen, it can work out, but it has to be on Nick Cannon's terms, it could work out, yeah. But Diddy will have to give him that freedom to do what he's doing now, But yeah.
Well, I believe Nick deserves a second chance. I mean, look.
Yeah.
Other people who are non-black who've done worse have gotten plenty of chances. I mean, how many police officers that are non-black get fired for police brutality that results in someone's death, and they go to another city and become a cop again? So if
many.
Okay, so if they're able to do that, which they shouldn't, then Nick Cannon, who didn't kill anybody, deserves to have a second chance.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Hello.
So let me expound on some things, because I know some people are listening. They're like, Jay, you mentioned the Semitic people, and Nick Cannon mentioned it, but he didn't mention the regions. Okay, I'll mention the regions. Northern African regions. The Semitic language. We're going all the way from Morocco to Ethiopia. And before Israel was the statehood of Israel, that was all Africa, including Lebanon. So and Saudi Arabia. So all of those lands were considered African. Well, of the African continent. It wasn't considered Europe yet. Okay. There is no such thing as a Middle East. The Middle East is actually a term. It's not a continent. Okay. Egypt and Israel are connected. That was all of the continent of Africa. That was all land belonging to Africa. So was India. But then you go into Asia. That's why you hear the term Afro-Asiatic, because Africa and Asia draw into each other. So before India was India, that was all Africa and Asia. Okay. Asia meaning east. Afro-Asiatic, Africans who have traveled east. Okay. So I know people are trying to figure out what are the languages. Well, Aramaic, ancient Hebrew, Ge'ez, Ethiopic languages, they are all considered Semitic. And in those regions, yes, these were people of dark complexion. You don't need to be mad at that. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Okay? So if anybody, you could Google this stuff. This isn't stuff that is, this information a long time ago, you had to pay for this information in the 70s and the 80s. You had to pay for this. This is information that you had to pay for. This information is free. Just look up Semitic regions. That's all he was referring to. He wasn't saying, these European, because out of the rabbi's mouth, he said European Jews. He said that for a reason. Even if he didn't mean to say the words European tied to it. He's trying to tell you that somehow the European bloodline infiltrated the Jewish bloodline. Or where the term Jewish comes from, because in the Bible, the term Jewish doesn't exist. You got Hebrew and then you have Jew. So where did the ish come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
So nobody called the rabbi anti-Semitic for saying the word European Jews. He was classifying what he connects to.
Right.
And what Nick Cannon was talking about was Semitic Hebrews that the Bible speaks about, that their Bible speaks about too, because in the Torah, it speaks about that. I'm trying to get the right verse, the verse in Deuteronomy that talks about slaves being put in cargo slave ships. I mean, put two and two together. Who is that? That sounds like us. And never to see their land again. That sounds like us. Now some would say, well, what about, that could be about the ones who were in captivity in Egypt and stuff like that. Well, let's talk about Egypt.
Listen, that was a that's when you read that, it's like a prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. But let's talk about Egypt. Let's talk about Egypt, because we're gonna talk about what we're gonna mention what I wish Nick would have did. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. For those who paid attention to the artifacts in Egypt, known as Kemet, also known as Mizraim, those people on the walls have a certain color to them, right? Right, Zacchaeus?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. On those walls, there are servants who, if we connect the dots, those would have to be servants of those would have to be Hebrew servants, right? Hebrew slaves, Hebrew servants. On those walls, they are painted the same complexion as the Egyptian rulers.
Yeah.
So if Israel and Egypt are neighbors, and the Egyptians are black according to the hieroglyphs, and the slaves that they got drawn on the glyphs, building stuff, if they're the same complexion as the Egyptians, then why is it so hard to believe that the original Hebrews may have not been black or not? I don't understand why that's difficult.
Because remember, you know why it's difficult? It's all about image.
Yeah.
And it's all about superiority.
Yep.
Now you have to look at it this way. Who changed the image of Jesus? Let's reflect on that. Constantine changed the image of Jesus. He did not like this Roman Empire did Catholicism, Roman Empire, but Roman was before the Catholicism even started, but did not like the image, did not like a African Jesus. They didn't want that image. They wanted a lighter skin image. Now, a European image, basically, a European image. So what it is that the European Jews can relate to that reflection of God Almighty, the superior being, God. Now, they identify with that. So therefore, it's very difficult to swallow that Israel and Jerusalem origin is Africa. It's very hard for them to swallow that. It's very hard for them to swallow that the dark-skinned man is Israeli, the Hebrews. the Hebrews that's from Moses are black people. It's very difficult for them to swallow that. It's very difficult to swallow that Abraham is black. It's very difficult for them to swallow that King Solomon is black. Very difficult for them to swallow that. So therefore, the image that we've been brainwashed, even as black people too, that some of us hang in our church from way back when, that the image of the Christ, like silky hair, blue eyes, and pale skin, is the image that they can relate to. You see? So they skip that page in the holy book where it says his hair is made of wool, his skin made of bronze, his fiery stone eyes. Right. No European person look like that to me. So,
well, is it also in that scripture Revelation, bronze as if it was burnt in a fiery furnace? So that's a dark skinned brother.
Yes, it is.
So that's letting us know exactly how dark he was, and it makes sense because the there's no shade, absolutely, almost no shade in the regions that we're talking about in those times. I mean, you got buildings now, but back then you didn't have all of that. That would burn somebody who doesn't have melanin up to a major degree. We found, and how we know that, because all the time when you hear stories about people going out there to Egypt and stuff like that to do these movies, that they said the sun was just tearing their skin up, tearing them up.
Yeah, I talk about the original Ten Commandments movie.
Yeah, Charlton Heston.
Yeah, Charlton Heston. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Jesus was in fact on this earth. On this earth, he was walking as a Hebrew, because that's what Mary was.
Right.
Okay. Mary comes from the bloodline of David.
Yes.
David was Hebrew.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, what are we talking about here? Now I know somebody's probably thinking, "Oh, well, you can still have that." Well, of course you can. Of course you could have albinoism comes from black people. The dominant you can't get the recessive from the you can't get the dominant from the recessive gene, but you can get the recessive from the dominant. And yes, black people can make a white baby, but white people can't make a black baby. That's never happened. Two white people can't make a black baby, but two black people can make a white baby. We know that from Esau. Esau came out looking very different, okay, than Jacob. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Now, you can say you don't believe, that's fine, but you know, don't say it's offensive, and you don't practice it yourself. What I'm saying is, if you're gonna be of the faith, and that's not a faith that you practice, then why are you trying to shut people down for it? That's all I'm saying. You know, because Griff talked about how he had Jewish people who were agnostic, and they were telling them what he was saying was wrong and offensive. Well, if it was wrong to them, it was because maybe they don't believe in the Torah. But but don't say it's offensive if you don't necessarily believe in it. If it's offensive, it's offensive. And yes, you know, if you offend anybody, you should apologize for offending them. I understand that, you know, but, you know, I just find it kind of interesting how this has been said for so many years. You know, there's a book called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. Even though the book was published by Minister Farrakhan, those were Jewish scholars that was in that book talking talking about the regions, talking about the people, talking about that. And, I wish that the Jewish scholars that were out there that have had this conversation about, the Hebrews and stuff like that, I wish they would came forward and spoke and say, listen, hey, we've done this research, and what we found is that what Nick Cannon was talking about was true. These Semitic people first were black. First.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't say, he said they were, he said, you had scholars say that these people were first black. You had another Jewish scholar who said that he is a bloodline of the country that he comes from, but he converted his faith into Judaism. And he was trying to make a distinction between Jewish people who practice Judaism and Hebrew people of the chronology.
Right.
That's what he was talking about.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And
yeah.
And you know what? I do understand this. Some people would say, how does this help our black empowerment? Well, it's not so much that this is more so about being black empowered. It's about this truth. And I want people to listen to my words very clearly, because I know some people are going to dissect this and they're probably going to call me anti-Semitic, but people have been saying things that are anti-Kemetic forever. So what I'm saying is this, and then I'm going to give it to Zacchaeus, and we're going to close out the show, is that when it comes to history, the deeper you go, the blacker it gets. And the only reason why black people in the history are not respected is because the history is not taught. There are things that cannot be erased. There's a lot of lies that have been spread upon the earth, but countless times we have seen people go back in history and search for the first bones and stuff like that. And then they do these DNA tests on them. And then they realize, wow, the oldest person on earth is a black man and a black woman. Or they said the oldest bones they found was from a black woman. And they got her in a museum somewhere, which that's disgusting to me, because that's another thing. Why is it that you get to take our culture and put them in a museum that you own and that you profit from, and you haven't given any profits to the black people that descend from that? That's disgusting. Disgusting. You see it all the time. You got mummies in museums. King Tut was a black man. We know that. We know that. And we know from looking at the glyphs, we know that from looking at the statues, the noses, the lips, looking at the statues of the Olmecs, looking at the statues of Buddha. Buddha's black. Buddha is a real person. I know some people are like, huh? No, Buddha is a actual person. Buddha is actually a name found in Africa. That's an African name when you think about it. Buddha, that's an African name. Muhammad is an African name. Everything comes from there. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. So the deeper you go, the blacker you get. And I want black people. I want all people. Because I think people would respect us more when they found out the path that black people have set before slavery, because they do this history over here from slavery, but they don't do the history before slavery. Before slavery, everything was done. Everything was done by us. And after slavery, the things that people benefit from was done from us too. But we had to go to people before the time happened. And
Okay.
these dates
Yeah.
cannot be debunked. Zacchaeus, I'm gonna let you take over, man.
Yes, in 535 BC, people always talk about, in history, people always talk about Shaka Zulu. They always talk about the Moors, but let's reflect before slavery. This is way, way before. This is during the biblical times now, before Christ. How you would say BC, yeah. So they had different dynasties. They had the Roman Empire that was very powerful. They had different tribes in Africa that were just as powerful. But when you speak about Rome, how powerful it was, there's a lot of history that is hidden that our history books will not teach you. You have to do a lot of research yourself. They had just way before Shaka Zulu, they had the Kush dynasty. The Kush dynasty is from Nubia. Nubia now is still now today considered Sudan. Nubia is a empire, a powerful African empire that the Romans had a tough time with. That they were very powerful empire that not even Alexander and all his glory could have fight them. Not even the Greek was afraid of them. The Persians were afraid of them. The Kush dynasty was very powerful. We was a proud people African people that stood and they fought and they won every battle. They when I was reading, they bodied Persia. They just it's just that this is the kind of history that this is way before slavery that is not taught. Because if you see in America, it always starts off with slavery. We are a royal and kings and queens way before slavery, way before the corruption of betrayal and slavery and the African empires that were watered down and conquered by just division and civil war. So I would say tap into your history, ladies and gentlemen, our black people out there, our young people, or tap into your history and just look at it, because our history do not start with slavery. Okay? Enough said. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah.
All right. Once again, for those who are listening, for our listeners in the Jewish community, if we offended you, we apologize. This show was not to target anybody of that community, but we just want to talk about our pain. You know, we respect all people's pain, but we just want to talk about ours, and we want to get to the bottom of this history. We want to get to the bottom of it, and that's all we want to do in life is go forward. And we are all on a journey or a path to increase our knowledge, to increase our studies, and we should be allowed to do that. Everybody should be allowed to do that, no matter what culture, race, or ethnicity you identify with or belong to. These are the things that it's your birthright to research, and that's all we want to do. And yes, we could have positive discourse and still come into the room as men and walk out still as men.
That's right.
That's all we're saying. All right, Zacchaeus, where can they reach you, man?
Yeah, you can reach me on Facebook. Wayne Zacchaeus Bacchus on Facebook. Also on Twitter, Wayne Bacchus 2 on Twitter. Also, you can hit me up on Instagram, Zacchaeus B73 on Instagram. Bless.
All right, you can reach me at the Fifth General on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All right, we're gonna see y'all on another episode of The Round Circle. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Yeah, peace.